Hello Python fans, welcome back to my channel, the go-to place for all things Python. In today's video, we have got an exciting journey ahead as we dive into the world of Python programming. Whether you are a beginner or a seasoned coder, there is always something for everyone. Stay tuned for the tip, tricks and the coding adventures. If you are new here, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the bell icon so you never misses out on our Python packed content. Let's dive into it. So first we will start with the history of the Python, and you will find that Python, unlike other languages, we can use the Python to develop for the purpose of web development, software development, mathematics, and also the system scripting. The main advantages of using the Python is that Python works on different platforms, that is on Windows, Mac, Linux, among other operating systems. Advantage number 2, Python has a simple syntax similar to the English language. So you will find that learning Python is quite simple for anyone. Another advantage is that Python has a syntax that allows the developer to write programs with fewer lines. And lastly, Python runs on an interpreter system, meaning that it can be executed as soon as it is written. And lastly, it can be treated on a functional way, procedural way, and also as an object-oriented way. When you compare Python with the other programming language, you will find that the Python has an upper hand when you compare with the other languages that you will learn as we continue to learn the coding. Number one is that it's more readable because it's almost similar to English language, which is influenced by mathematics. Then another advantage over the other languages is that Python uses fewer lines to complete a command as opposed to other programming language. And lastly, Python relies on indentation using a white space to define a scope, such as the scope of loops, function, classes, and other programming language will often use the curly brackets for this purpose. Okay, let's dive to the actual thing. So let's try to create our first file. So let me try to give my file a name. So I will call this file training.py, which stands for Python. Then there goes the folder where I have stored my Okay, so as usual, the first thing is, as usual, let's try now to create a code, a program which writes hello world. So as usual, we start with the prints, open the brackets, then quotation mark, then hello world. Then after that, you run your program. So you click this, you run the code. You see, as you can see, we have successfully created a program by the name Hello World. So that is our first program on our tutorial. So if you manage to create that program, I can assure you that you are ready for this program. But if at all you fail, but there is still hope, continue to learn, go through the reading material, and you will be able to create this first file. Having written our first program, the next step is to come up with a comment. In the Python, the commenting capability usually choose the hash. Example for this one. So this one, the hash will enable us. This one will enable us to comment, and it is never executed. It's just for the purpose of in-code documentation. Okay, having done that, now let's move to the next part, Python indentation. The Python indentation. In the indentation, it refers to the space at the beginning of a code line. For example, let's try to print if 10 is greater than 8, then you must have a colon. There is a space in between. There is a space in between from this point to this point. I think you can see the space in between this point, that space. That space is what we call the indentation. While in other programming language, the indentation in code is for the readability only, the indentation in the Python is very important. You must always, and note the keyword always, have indentation in the Python. If you don't involve or include indentation, your code will not run completely or correctly. Okay, for the Python, indentation indicates a block of code. Okay, so if 10 is greater than 8, print, open the brackets, you print maybe yes. Okay, let me see what will happen. Okay, run your code. You'll find that there is an error. Okay, hope you are able now to see the mistake. There is no indentation on this part. Nice. There is no indentation on that. Okay, so we have a print. You print yes, then you run your code. Okay, let me see what I have. As you can see, we have this is the output. This is the output that we have. We have the so the most important part is that we have learned that the space in between is what we refer to as an indentation, and it must be always there in the Python. Otherwise, the code will not run. And also, you need to note that the space should be at least 1. And you have to use the same number of space in the same code block of code, otherwise the Python will give you an error. Hope you are together. Okay, let's try to run another code. If 10 is greater than 11, print, you print yes. Okay, let me see what will happen. Then you run your code. As you can see, nothing has been printed. This is the last printing because 10 of course is not larger than 11, but if at all you change this one to a smaller number like maybe 7, we can have yes, it's large, so that you can have a different message. Okay, let's try to run. So you can see that it has run successfully. Okay, on our next part, we look at variables and variables. So we have variables is our next thing. And remember what we have said. Remember that for the comment, which we usually use the hash, it's never executed. So in this next part, we have the variables, and actually variables are the containers for storing data values. You will find that unlike other programming languages, that Python has no command for declaring variable. Therefore, variables are created the moment you first assign a value to it. Okay, let's try to do it. So we have, let's assume that we have a variable like the value of x is equal to 10 and y, the value is Stanley. That's my name, Stanley. Therefore, print, you print x and you print y. Okay, let's see what we'll have. So what we have done, we have created the containers for storing our variables. Okay, let's try to run our code. Okay, let's see what we have. So you find that we have not defined this part. Okay, so we need now to define, because if you look at where the problem is, the error results, you need to the name of the error name Stanley is not defined, and you need always to define a name. So I've already defined by having this one. So let's try to run the code. Okay, let's see what we have. So as you can see, our code has run successfully. So we have the first code, we have this one, hello world, this one. Then we have this yes. Then next we have these are the comment. Remember the comment, we use the hash. We use the hash to run to write a comment which is never executed. Okay, in our next part we have now the variables name that we have. For this one, we are going to cover the camel case, Pascal case, the snake case. Okay, let's start with the first one. Okay, let's start with the Pascal case, which is an example of a variable. Remember that for the essence of using this variable name is that when the variable name with more than one word can actually be difficult for one to read. Therefore, we use this some of the techniques such as the Pascal, the Camel, among others, to make our code readable. For this one, that is the Pascal, for each for for each word, you start with a capital letter. For each word, we'll start with a capital letter. For example, let's have my name, my variable, then we have the name, then equal sign, then we have you have to declare the name, then we have Stanley. Or let's use another name. We can go for John so that we can distinguish it from the other. Therefore, you will print print, then you print this one, you copy, then you print paste, you print my variable name, then you try to run. So you can see that we have successfully used the Pascal to run our command. Okay, let's treat again. These are too many. Let's delete that. So let's remain with the one. So the most important part is that for the scale, each word will start with a capital letter. Okay, let's go to the next one. And we have our next one, we have the snake case. Now for the snake case, it is separated by an underscore. Separated by underscore character. For example, we have my name, my variable, we have my variable, then we have the name, then the equal sign, then you declare. We have let's use another name like Jen, then you print my name variable, then you run your code. Okay, let's see what we have. As you can see, this nice is working. We have already successfully printed the name Jen. Okay, in our last part, we have the camel case. We have the camel case. So we have the camel case. And for the camel case, you start with each word except the first one start with a capital letter. Each word starts with capital letter except first letter. Okay, for example, my variable, the name, note that the first one should, an equal sign should always start with the small letter. Okay, so we use the name like Johnson or Johnson. Okay, then you print then you have my name. Okay, run your code. You'll find that we have successfully printed the name Johnson. So what we have learned from these three lines is that we have the snake case, camel case, and lastly the Pascal. In our next part, then we have another scenario whereby you have to declare many values to multiple variables. So the Python will allow you to assign values to multiple variables in one line. For example, so in our next part we have multiple variables. For example, we have a we have a, b, and c. We will assign them the first one. We have mango. Number the next one we have bananas, and the last one we have maybe we can pick a, a fruit like oranges. So the next part is let's try to print. You print A, print B, and you print C. Okay, let's try to run it. There is a problem. It says that invalid tab in. So we have invalid intax. Okay, let's make a correction on it. Okay. Okay, we forget to include the equal sign. Okay, that's where the problem was. Okay, so if at all you make any mistake, of course you do not be able now to print. So we have A, B, C. So this is whereby you deal with the multiple. So this one will make your work more simpler when declaring these variables. Okay, so in our next part we have having done that all the cases of variables. So we have camel, snake, and the Pascal. Okay, let's move to the next part, the output variables. For the Python, the print opening closing brackets function is often used to output the variables. Okay, let's try to still work on this one. So rather than having to use the Python print as for the output function, okay, let's try to copy this line so that we can do the next part. Okay, let's assume that you want to have only one print function. So I will use print, then brackets, then we have a plus a plus b plus c, and close the brackets. Okay, let me try to run and see what I'll get. Okay, you can see that I've been now able to print the mangoes, bananas, but you will find that they are all joined together. So in order to separate this one, so I will copy this one, paste, then go for the other one, bananas. Then for the C, okay, let me try to run it. Okay, let's use the commas. Okay, so you will find that in the print function, your output multiply are always separated by a comma. You will find that whenever now we separate with the comma, the results with that this one will be separated as you can see. So we have the mango bananas and lastly oranges. So if you use the the plus operator to output multiple variables, you will always notice that the space in between, there will not be any space between the variables that we have. So all the words will be joined together, the results. So to avoid that, you always use the comma. So you use the comma to separate. Use comma to separate variables. That's very important to note. Okay, so we had through with that part. Okay, in our next part, still on variables, we have global variables. And variables that can be created out of the function are all known as the global variables. And the global variables can be used by everyone, both inside the function or outside the function. And if you create a variable with the same name inside the function, this variable will be local and can be used inside the function. And the global variables with the same will remain. So we have a global variables. Okay, let's come up with an example. For example, we have D is equal to good news. Then define my function. Define my function. Then we have a colon there. Then you need now to print. Remember, we are trying to combine this one with what we have in our function. And what we have in our function, we have learning. Python. Save is good news. Save is then we had what we have in our global variable d. Then next part you have my function. Then you try to run. Okay, run your command. Okay, let's do to the other part so that you can have a clean look. So you find that whenever we try to run things, this code is not giving any results. And the mistake is that this one, my function to be at the start of the line. Okay, let's try to run it. So you can find that we have been able now to run our code. So learning Python itself is good news. So let's try to create a space there. So remember that everything that you do, you find that when we have a closing marks at that point, there will not be any space. But if you create a space, it will definitely create a space at the results based on. So what we have covered the variables, how to add comments, and also the importance of indentation in the Python. Okay, so in our next lesson, we will cover Python data type, Python numbers, and Python casting, those two things. So ensure that you like, click that notification bell, and also you subscribe so that we can continue learning together.